And now back to one of our top stories, the release of internal Twitter communications regarding the tech giant's censorship of the Hunter Biden laptop story. We're joined now by Republican Senator from South Dakota and member of the Senate Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees, Mike Rounds. He also serves on the Senate Banking and Veterans Affairs Committees. Senator, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Just want to get to this Twitter news off the top. You know, from that reporting, it sounds like the first tools that were used to control speech were designed to combat spam and financial fraudsters, but political bodies started lobbying to use them, those tools for their own interests, and decisions were not made even-handedly. What do you think Congress needs to do next in light of what we've learned so far?
The first thing is get the information out. These teasers that are coming out reconfirm what a lot of us thought, which was Twitter was manipulating a lot of the information coming through, but they were doing it in coordination with the Biden campaign. Maybe they have similar beliefs, but this is something that never should have been allowed. There needs to be checks and balances within those organizations that release information like that. But right now, it just simply confirms what a lot of us had thought, which is that Twitter was in bed with the Biden campaign team.
You know, the hacked materials policy, which Twitter was citing for the reason to suppress this story, according to these documents, requires an official finding or law enforcement designation of a hack, but that doesn't seem to appear anywhere, at least in what we've seen so far. Do you see a need to haul people in before congressional committees to testify about these things? Does that amount to any reason to investigate if a crime occurred here?
I'm not sure yet if there was a crime, but clearly it was an ethical violation on the part of basically a news organization, an open platform in which information should be shared freely. And when you start to manipulate that information and intentionally try to mislead the public, now you've got a real problem. And I think Congress will have a series of investigations, but it goes back and it reconfirms what a lot of us have thought, which was Twitter was manipulating what information people were seeing first on their screens. And that does not lead to a positive outcome in terms of people believing things long term or gaining additional trust for the American people. And that's something that we should all be concerned about is can the American people trust what they find online, and how do you find an honest news source?
Yeah. We should note that these tools were available to both the Trump and Biden camps, and both of them made requests and both of them were honored. But Democrats had apparently more channels through which to log those requests and found their woes adjudicated more often, according to what we've seen, than Republicans who were launching similar concerns. One thing that struck me is Ro Khanna speaking up. He's the only Democrat voice we've heard so far protesting this, and at least what we've seen would suggest that Democrats were eager to use this system to their advantage.
Look, politics.
Go ahead.
Politics brings out sometimes the worst in people. And in this particular case, not only were the people manipulating information at Twitter, but the Biden election team was not only taking advantage of it, they were promoting it. They were getting away with it. They knew what they were doing. And they knew that they had cohorts inside of Twitter that would take their recommendations at a very sensitive time in the election cycle. The ethics were not there, and clearly the ethics were not there when it comes to Twitter. This is, and look, there are some things when people intend to mislead the American public, there are some things that we can do, but it starts out with getting all of the information. And as you suggested earlier, I think there will be opportunities for investigations into how it happened, who was responsible for it, and whether or not there has to be some sort of a cost involved for an organization that does this as unfairly as it appears they did.
I want to turn to the defense forum that you're at in Simi Valley, California. Obviously, big issue is continuing Ukraine funding. I want to play some sound from the president talking about the need to fund Ukraine. Take a listen to this.
We must support the Ukrainian people. The idea that Putin is ever going to defeat Ukraine is beyond comprehension. Imagine them trying to occupy that country for the next 2, 5, 10, 20 years, if they could. So
some of your colleagues might hear that and wonder, are we setting ourselves up to be funding Ukraine for the next 20 years. What's at stake here in trying to lay out what the U.S. needs to get done? And how do you sort of mediate the concerns within your party over, continuing to support Ukraine, but also this issue of oversight and the concern that we heard in Jennifer's package earlier that Russian propagandists might use those concerns to their advantage?
First of all, oversight is appropriate, and if we're going to put billions of dollars in, we want to make sure that the Biden administration is doing what they say they're going to do with the money. We want to make sure that it gets into the hands of the Ukrainians and it goes to the right places. We think the American people expect that of their government. The second piece is we are all supporting, the vast majority of us are supporting Ukraine, and we would rather have Ukraine doing the battling on their ground, pushing Putin back, making Putin expend his resources, rather than us having American troops there. We don't intend to have American troops there, but we do want the Ukrainians to have the tools they need to defend their homeland and to push Putin out. In doing so, that weakens Putin. There's a lot of us that really question whether Putin can even continue this on economically for the next 6 months. As we continue with sanctions, he's running out of ammo. He's running out of faith back home. But over the next couple of months, in the middle of the winter, if Ukrainians have the tools and the resources and the desire to fight during the winter, they're really going to take some opportunities that Putin would prefer to just simply sit back and rebuild. And if they take the opportunity to continue to push him, Putin is going to find himself in a very precarious position come spring. And economically, he may not be able to continue on without providing concessions.
Okay. We're out of time, unfortunately. Appreciate the discussion. Senator Mike Rounds, always a pleasure to have you. Thanks so much. Griff?
Thank you.